Cheers guys, Epyx911, welcome to the Elitist Geek. Today I want to talk about toys. When I was growing up, we had arcade machines everywhere, and any of you who followed my videos know that I'm an arcade freak. I love arcade machines. I built myself a MAME cabinet, Aliens themed one that plays all the arcade games I grew up with and then some. But I'm also a retro game freak for consoles like the NES, ColecoVision, Atari 2600, Intellivision, TurboGrafx, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, you name it. I have them on my arcade cabinet, but they had a different control architecture even back then. So as long as it's a gamepad style control device, I don't mind playing them, necessarily outside of an arcade cabinet, right? So I bought a couple of toys that allow me to do exactly that because I love mobile gaming, the ability to play on a plane. The first toy that I bought was this unit here. This is called the JXD S7800B as in Bob. It's a 16 gig tablet, and I'll show you the tablet right here. It's a 16 gig tablet. It looks like if a 7-inch tablet and a PlayStation Portable had a love child, basically this is what it would look like. Now, I've got pretty monstrous hands, so for me, it's perfect. But it's essentially a 7-inch tablet, right? Now, what are the advantages of this? Well, let's start with the disadvantages first. It's Chinese built. What does that mean? Well, quality control varies in China. At the top end, it can be Foxconn, Apple-run manufacturing facility, which churns out quality, products like this iPhone 6 Plus that I have, right? But on the low end, it can roll out monstrosities. I would put the JXD somewhere in the middle, all right? It's not horrible, but there's certain things in here that just wouldn't pass on a modern tablet, let's face it. So if I can get up really close here, I don't know if you guys can see. So yeah, you can actually see the one that drives me nuts. So right there, you see that white speck? That white speck is a piece of dust, and it's a pretty big piece, as you can tell, right? Some people, it wouldn't bother them at all. I'm the kind of guy, I see one dead pixel, drives me absolutely fucking bonkers. I won't be able to stop staring at it, and I can't stop staring at this piece of dust. And I know there's a way to lift this, probably, but I haven't wanted to risk it yet. Remove the dust. But knowing my luck, I'll probably introduce, 7 more pieces of freaking dust. So I've left it alone for now, because the nice thing is when you actually turn it on, and I'll just let it boot up because it actually takes a while. But any kind of game screen or dark colors, once that LCD screen kicks in, you don't notice it, thank God. But it still drives me nuts because I can still see it, right? So just a quick rundown. It's a 16 gigabyte device in that it's got 16 gigs internal memory, all right, like storage space. It's a 1.6 gigahertz quad core processor, and I believe it's Rock chips is the processor that it uses. What are some of the other features? It's got a micro SD slot right here. Unfortunately, the SD slot only accommodates micro SD cards up to 32 gigabytes. That's still all right. So you've got 32 gigs, plus the 16 built in. You've got 48 minus the overhead, comfortably 40 to 45 gigabytes of storage space for all your ROMs. So what do I have on here? Well, let's go into, so you can see I've just tapped it open there. NES, Super Nintendo, PlayStation Portable, Commodore 64, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, NES Classic, Commodore 64, Amiga, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast. It's got a pretty damn good selection. 2 analog sticks, not the best. That's where that Chinese quality control comes in. I'll see if it focuses, but when you basically lift the nub, you can see the internals of the device, which is a little cheesy. Stereo speakers, but admittedly, they flake out if you've got the volume too high. If it's something that's bass heavy, you know, there's quite a bit of distortion. Sounds decent on headphones, but again, speaking about a quality issue, you can't have the headphone jack or your 3.5 millimeter plugged in all the way flush. You've actually got to pull it out a little bit, probably about a millimeter, half a millimeter, to get stereo sound. If you put it in all the way, you only get mono on the right earbud, which is silly. But again, it's one of those things. Now, it sounds like I'm being overly negative, but there's a lot of positives. Let's face it, you've got an awesome D-pad here. The D-pad feels fine. You've got, you know, your 4 buttons over here. You've got 2 shoulder buttons on each side. So you've got your R1, R2, L1, L2. You've got a home Android button here, a game controller button, start select. You know, you can map to for all of those consoles I talked about, like the Super Nintendo, the Genesis. They all use start select. You've got a back button, and then you've got a app button that brings you back into app mode, as well as the ability to kill running apps, right, with the select button. So it's remappable, but in its native state, it basically, if you hold and click, it shows you what you're running. Of course, I have nothing because I just rebooted it. That's right. So you can map to any of these. Most of the emulators, the Android emulators that I pointed out earlier, they handle that right out of the box, which is really freaking cool. So, you know, there's some negatives. Like I said, the sound distortion is a negative. The quality control, the dust particle on the screen drives me absolutely bonkers. The Wi-Fi. If you can see that here. Let's get the Wi-Fi. See if it can focus. There we go. So you can see, barely, the Wi-Fi isn't quite max, which is funny. So of 4 bars, I got 3 bars, which is funny only in that the wireless router is literally 18 inches up that way. So theoretically, they're pretty much sitting on top of each other, and you don't have full Wi-Fi connectivity. If I'm in my basement, this is a 3-story house, I'm basically at 1 bar. All my other Wi-Fi devices, whether it's Super Nintendo or 3DS, my other tablets, they all get 2 to 3 bars. So half to 3/4 power easily in the basement. This thing's sitting at minimum. So definitely a negative there. The other negative is no Bluetooth, right? Which to me is not a huge issue because I like to plug in USB devices, so it doesn't have to be wireless to me. Would it be more convenient? Absolutely. But then again, you've got the controls built in, right? So who cares? So I can see their reasoning. The unit cost $130. They were able to cut those types of costs because the aforementioned quality issues, but also having the controls built in really negated the requirement for Bluetooth, right? Maybe if you wanted a keyboard attached to this for, let's face it, computer emulation like the Amiga and the Commodore 64, yeah, that would have been handy. But if you're going to go that far with those types of emulators, you're still not prohibited from doing that because there is a micro USB slot there. And for those of you thinking to themselves, well, what does that mean? You still can't plug a regular USB device in? Yes, you can. Most of you probably know about this, but there might be a few who didn't. They have these cables, and it actually comes with this cable. This is a micro USB to female full USB. And this is called a micro OTG, micro on-the-go converter cable. You can pick these up at most computer stores, NCIX, Memory Express if you're in Canada, Newegg, etc. if you're in the States, for just a couple of bucks. What they allow you to do is plug into that micro USB and then put a full-size USB peripheral in, whether that's your Xbox 360 controller, which is what I actually do quite a bit, because I can prop this up, and I just like the feel of my Xbox controls better. These are great if you're on the go, but like I said, the analog's a little weak, so for games that use analog, I use the Xbox 360 controller. So there you go. That's my JXD. I've got a 32 gig micro SD card in there, so I actually have the 40 to 45 gigs in there. The other toy I bought is Nvidia Shield tablet. Now, I didn't go with the portable unit because I believe the portable unit was a Tegra 4 processor. I wanted something slightly faster. The JXD, while fantastic, has some issues, some slowdown issues with playing, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast titles. You're usually, or even NDS, you're running close to 100% most of the time, but some demanding titles, you're losing 20%. You're 20% from max, right, with that processor. This Shield tablet allows me to do the PlayStation and all of those other emulators. I bet you it could pull off PS2 and Dolphin, right, like GameCube titles, if the Dolphin emulator itself wasn't so damn buggy on the Android. It's almost like the dev has pretty much abandoned it. So it exists, but it hasn't really been supported in months. But so yeah, that's the main reason I got this tablet. And I'll show you guys right here. That's this one here. And I also, bought the case, which is just magnetic. And it just nicely, the way the holes are lined up and the magnet's strong enough, it just finds itself, no problem. Closing puts it into power saving mode. But yeah, the beauty of this tablet is the fast Nvidia. It's got an Nvidia K1, 192 CUDA cores, I think it's called. It's freaking fast. It's double the iPad Air speed, and compared to my JXD, I think the Shield ranked about 40K on a benchmark, and the JXD, just to put it in perspective, was about 14,000. So you're talking, 2 point something times faster in terms of raw processing power, graphical horsepower, etc. Probably even more. So same thing with the Shield tablet. It doesn't have the controls built in, but that micro USB, cable that I told you about, I put in here. Speakers, and this is where quality difference is huge, right? The stereo speakers in this Nvidia Shield unit, infinitely fucking better than the JXD. So you get a lot of bang for the buck with the JXD, but you don't get a lot of top-notch quality, and that's where the Nvidia unit really shines. You've got the stereo speaker, right? What I forgot to mention with the JXD and the Nvidia Shield is that they both have mini HDMI. So you can put a mini HDMI cable and output to your TV on both units, okay? The other advantage of the Shield is that its micro SD slot is capable of supporting up to 128 gigabytes. I currently have 64 gig card in there, plus it natively has 16 gigs. So what is that? 78 gigabytes of data. 64, 74, 82 gigabytes of data. So speakers are a little bit better. It's got a really cool stylus, which is proprietary to this device. Volume knob. Like I said, quality, quality, quality. You can get the Bluetooth, because Bluetooth is obviously supported like it is with most tablets. You can get the Bluetooth controller, but I actually prefer the Xbox controller. Like I said, I have one. Here it is. Right? You don't need headphones with that. And then what you do, where the hell did I put that cable? Let's see. I had it here. Anyways, yeah, you just plug the cable in, and then you can use your Xbox 360 controller. So, not an issue. Works well. And allows me, more importantly, to do emulation on the go, which is something I do quite frequently. I've got absolutely no geek issues with pulling out my JXD in a doctor's office. If I go shopping with the wife, which can be a form of subtle torture, I'll be a little more discreet and I'll pull out the iPhone 6 Plus, which was another device. Let's talk about toys. Let's wrap it up with this device. Yes, it's a honking screen, but That's the advantage of it. Being an IT guy, you'll rarely ever see me hold this up to my ear, right? I'll use Bluetooth, or I'll use my earbuds, or I'll just, like hands-free speaker. I rarely hold it to my ear. So the fact that it's honking huge for a phone, for the phone portion, a moot point for me. Don't care. What I do care about is being able to run, and I'll show you guys here, for the first time on a phone, iBooks, right? So ebooks, there we go. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me just move it over a bit. Now, I've got really good eyes, but this is the first phone where I can actually read ebooks, like a tablet, because it's a 5.5-inch screen, right? And, you've got the nice page turning that both Android and, iOS have. Not only that, not only can I read ebooks on it, I'm also a huge comic nerd. My favorite being, some of the old Marvel comics. So this is Conan the Barbarian. I think that's probably like issue 2 or 3 of the comics. But again, I can read all those panels. I can also, flip it horizontal and, have the match. And then you can set up your page turning so that it actually, in horizontal mode, is smart enough to just go panel by panel, right? So you get that full 10-inch tablet size and all your panels within the viewable area in horizontal. And then you can just, click in 1/3 till you get to the end of the page. Then it automatically goes to the top of the next page, the middle, bottom, and repeats top, middle, bottom, right? But honestly, in portrait, it's still large enough, the fonts. First phone that can pull that off. So that to me is the main reason I went with the iPhone 6 Plus. The other reason, of course, and it's not jailbroken. Everything that you see here is just, legit apps. AV Player, which in my opinion is probably the best app for the iPhone's, iOS, in that I can watch anime on a nice here's Sword Art Online, for example. I can watch it on a 5.5-inch screen. So back to what I was originally saying, if I'm following my wife shopping, I can just kind of discreetly put the earbuds in and follow along. And yeah, honey, that looks fantastic. Oh, excellent. And watch, right? So strategy, there you go. All right, guys, so those are the toys that I've kind of indulged in the last couple of weeks. Let me know what toys you have been craving in terms of tech toys. This is going to tie me over, sure. What am I really looking forward to? Oculus Rift, come on. Me, Oculus Rift, proper controls, and Elite Dangerous or Star Citizen, and I'll be a shut-in. I will take a vacation, I swear it to you guys. All right, as always, guys, cheers. Have a fantastic one.